Let me set the stage for you, because we are standing on the absolute precipice of a massive, real-time cinematic event, one that is going to fundamentally redefine the epic genre as we know it. Look, Christopher Nolan's entire legacy is built on completely shattering our expectations, right? I mean, he redefined the modern comic book movie with The Dark Knight, he visualized the literal physical architecture of the human subconscious in Inception, and then he basically weaponized the theory of relativity to break our collective hearts in Interstellar. But now he's returning, and he is pivoting to a historical mythic epic. And I gotta tell you, this is a seismic shift for the film industry. I want to take you on a deeply detailed, step-by-step cinematic journey today to understand exactly what is about to happen here. Because we are not just talking about another standard movie release. We're talking about an immensely ambitious project that demands we completely deconstruct everything we've come to expect from modern blockbuster cinema. Let me explain exactly why this is such a game changer. I want you to lock this exact date into your mind, May 4. Because tomorrow night, the entire cinematic landscape is going to literally shift beneath our feet. Let's break down exactly why this specific drop matters so much. You know how modern movie marketing works, right? Usually studios just unceremoniously drop a YouTube link on a random Tuesday morning with a generic tweet, just crossing their fingers and hoping the algorithm picks it up. Well, Nolan completely refuses that model. He is demanding our undivided, collective attention by turning the very act of watching a trailer into a synchronized global event, forcing millions of people to tune in at the exact same moment to experience the very first glimpse of this new universe together. He is beautifully mimicking the communal, shared experience of actually sitting in a dark, packed movie theater. Okay, let's unpack the sheer genius of this release strategy. Taking over The Late Show with Stephen Colbert around 11:35 p.m. Eastern Time to drop the main trailer. Think about the medium of late night television for a second. It's this analog style reveal in a completely digital world. It creates absolute event television with this live wire tension. You know it's coming, but the exact minute, it's slightly fluid. And Nolan absolutely thrives in this exact space, where controlled chaos meets absolute precision storytelling. He isn't just promoting a film here, he is acting as our direct guide. He's stepping out to establish the tone, the massive scale, and the emotional core of this universe on live television before anyone else can control the narrative. So let's move into section 1, reimagining the myth. We really need to talk about the absolute monumental scale of the project itself. Taking a thousands of years old text and translating it into a modern visual language, that is a Herculean task. We are looking at a story that forms the very bedrock of human narrative. Let's really break down Homer's original themes here. We are dealing with Odysseus' brutal, agonizing 10-year struggle to return home after the Trojan War. The guy faces literal monsters, seductive sirens, the sheer unbridled wrath of Poseidon, all while his wife Penelope fends off these treacherous suitors back in Ithaca. Adapting this is incredibly difficult because themes of deep endurance, psychological trauma, and profound transformation, those are intensely internal struggles. Translating that deep internal struggle into an explosive external cinematic language requires a director who understands exactly how to make isolation feel overwhelmingly terrifying on a massive screen. And honestly, this quote beautifully illustrates why Nolan is the absolute perfect visionary for this. He already knows how to bend time and layer realities to craft structurally experimental art. Think back to how he approached Interstellar. He used the literal bending of space-time and those massive, terrifying tidal waves to tell a deeply human story about time, memory, and identity. So when he approaches the Odyssey, he isn't going to just give us some standard chronological boat ride across the Mediterranean. No way. He is going to explore what time, profound isolation, and mythic terrors actually do to the human psyche when you've been lost in the void for a decade. But here's the thing. An ambitious structure, an incredible cinematic spectacle, they mean absolutely nothing without the human element. You can have the most breathtaking practical oceans and the most mind-bending editing timelines in the world. But if we don't deeply care about the people on the screen, the entire spectacle completely collapses. So who can actually carry this kind of weight? Let's take a beat here, because this leads us directly to the performers who are tasked with anchoring this absolute leviathan of a film. Which brings us to section 2, an unprecedented ensemble cast. I am completely blown away by the sheer magnitude of the talent assembled here. Because when you are dealing with literal gods, terrifying monsters, and a hero pushed to the absolute breaking point of human sanity, you need actors who can project immense gravity just by standing in the frame. Leading the charge, we have longtime Nolan collaborators Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway. Think about Damon's desperate, suffocating isolation in Interstellar or Hathaway's incredibly complex, devastating emotional arcs in The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar. They implicitly understand Nolan's specific rhythm. They know exactly how to deliver incredibly dense, complex emotional dialogue while standing in the middle of a swirling cinematic storm. They are going to be our grounded emotional anchors in all this madness. Then we inject Tom Holland and Zendaya into the mix. And I gotta say, this is a highly calculated, totally brilliant move to ensure this doesn't feel like some dusty museum exhibit. Holland brings this frantic, desperate, incredibly raw human energy to his dramatic turns. And Zendaya, as we've already seen her do in massive sci-fi epics like Dune, commands the screen with this quiet, incredibly powerful intensity. By casting younger, highly resonant megastars alongside the veterans, this ancient myth instantly bridges the gap for modern audiences. Suddenly, it feels incredibly present, urgent, and alive. And just rounding out this staggering roster, we have Robert Pattinson, who brought such an undeniable, enigmatic chemistry to the intricate timelines of Tenet, not to mention that brooding darkness to the Batman. Joining him are absolute powerhouse titans Lupita Nyong'o, whose physical acting and emotional depth are just completely unparalleled, and Charlize Theron, who we already know can completely dominate a chaotic, desolate landscape with pure commanding screen presence. I mean, just look at what she did in Mad Max Fury Road. Picture the sheer acting horsepower of this ensemble clashing against each other on a massive IMAX screen. The dynamic is going to be absolutely electric.
So, with a cast this deeply layered, how do you actually go about structuring a myth? Joseph Campbell's monomyth, the traditional linear hero's journey strictly centered on a protagonist moving predictably from point A to point B, that's the standard foundation for pretty much every Hollywood blockbuster. But knowing what we know about how Christopher Nolan operates, a simple, straightforward narrative is almost entirely out of the question. We are about to witness something vastly more complex.
Let's dive into Section 3, Bending Time and Structure. Let's deeply explore the narrative architecture here, because Nolan uses structure not just as a cool gimmick, but as a literal mechanism to put us directly inside the headspace of his characters. I want you to imagine what a fragmented timeline actually means for a story like The Odyssey. Imagine a sequence where we see Penelope agonizingly weaving her burial shroud in Ithaca, and in the exact same frame, we aggressively cut to Odysseus trapped on Calypso's island decades earlier. Through the editing, those years of physical separation feel like they're seconds apart. We might experience parallel arcs where the excruciating wait back at home is occurring simultaneously with the treacherous journey at sea, but moving at entirely different emotional speeds. We won't just be watching their profound confusion from a distance. Through these overlapping timelines, we're going to be forced to experience that intense, crushing disorientation firsthand. Next up, Section 4, the scale of immersion. Because narrative structure is really only half the battle, right? We have to look closely at the visual philosophy that will actually bring this terrifyingly vast world to life. Nolan has constantly pushed the boundaries of practical filmmaking. He literally crashed a real 747 in Tenet and recreated a nuclear blast without CGI in Oppenheimer. So when we talk about him doing the Odyssey, we are talking about building actual massive ships, braving real terrifying oceans, utilizing practical in-camera trickery to achieve staggering realism. Avoiding green screens fundamentally changes the way actors perform. They aren't pretending to be cold and wet on a giant green soundstage. They are out there enduring the actual elements. It changes the way real water physically interacts with the lighting on camera. The physical toll and the visceral reality of this practical approach, that is going to bleed through every single frame. Now, the sheer audacity of this timeline is deeply important to understand. 2027. The film itself doesn't actually arrive until 2027. In a modern era where studios announce a movie maybe 6 months before it hits theaters and just kind of hope for the best, planting a flag 3 full years in advance is a massive flex of directorial power and supreme confidence. Making this early trailer reveal is a deliberate statement of intent. He is building an entirely different kind of anticipation. It's a simmering, long-term cultural event, effectively looking at the industry and saying, this is what the future of cinema is going to look like. Get ready. Which brings us perfectly to our final section, the future of cinema. Let's be honest and look at the current state of Hollywood right now. We are dealing with immense superhero fatigue, a landscape totally filled with endless sequels and an absolute obsession with safe, predictable intellectual property. But here, we are witnessing a filmmaker operating completely outside those standard franchise formulas. Stepping back into the deepest roots of human storytelling, a public domain ancient text, with this level of blockbuster budget and blank check ambition, that is a radical act of defiance. Safe storytelling gives a studio a decent weekend at the box office. Massive, terrifying, unprecedented risk is what actually cements a film into the cultural zeitgeist for decades. He is putting everything on the line to prove that audiences still desperately crave deep, challenging, mythic storytelling on the biggest screens possible. And you know that trailer breakdown culture is about to go into absolute overdrive. I know for a fact that the very moment this footage drops, we are going to dissect it frame by painstaking frame. So let me tell you exactly what you need to look for. Watch for hidden aspect ratio changes that signal timeline shifts. Listen closely to the audio mix for those signature ticking clock motifs usually hidden in the scores by frequent Nolan collaborators. Look for the seams between practical, in-camera stunts and the necessary composite shots. This isn't just a teaser. This is a layered puzzle. And we will be studying this footage for months, trying to unlock the secrets of the intricate labyrinth he has constructed. So, as we wait for this monumental, earth-shattering reveal on May 4, I want to leave you with this comprehensive thought to deeply ponder. We've explored the massive weight of the ancient source material, that staggering powerhouse ensemble cast, the beautifully complex time-bending nonlinear structure, and the uncompromising dedication to practical, visceral visual filmmaking. All of these pieces are perfectly converging to push the medium forward. We are standing on the very edge of the cinematic unknown, about to see if the moving image can be both deeply ancient, rooted in our oldest human traditions, and entirely, breathtakingly futuristic at exactly the same time. Prepare yourselves, because the journey is just beginning. So, what do you think? Are we ready for the epic to be reborn?